Good morning, everyone, and welcome to all of you to our debate on EU-Africa Partnership, Enhancing Digital Learning for All. Today's debate is hosted by EIF Steering Committee member Maria Carvalho, MEP, who is a leading voice in the European Parliament with the EPP group from Portugal. She's a member of the ITRE Committee, of the Committee on Women's Rights and Gender Equality, and of the Special Committee on Artificial Intelligence in a Digital Age. Welcome and thank you very much for taking the lead, Maria, on this specific debate at our forum. I will leave you the floor in a moment, but if you allow me, I will first introduce our panelists who today will help us understand how to improve the partnership between the EU and Africa when it comes to education and digital skills in particular. A warm welcome to Asma Ennaifer, who's Director of Corporate Social Responsibility and Communication and Orange Digital Center at Orange Middle East and Africa. Welcome. We're also joined by Toni Kaatz-Dubberke, who is Project Lead Strategic Alliance Orange Digital Center at GIZ, the German Corporation for International Cooperation, who will deliver a joint presentation with Asma, Siobhan Lynch, Program Director, iMlango. We're also joined by Kiarie Kamau, who's Managing Director and CEO at the East African Educational Publishers. And last but not least, welcome to Kirsten van Kamp, Policy Officer, Digital Education at DG INTPA at the European Commission. Thank you all very much for joining us. Now I will leave the floor to our hosting MEP for our opening remarks. Then we will listen to your presentations and, as usual, a Q&A session will follow later.
Good morning to everyone, and I'm very honored to welcome you all to this very interesting debate organized by European Internet Forum that I really thank for all the organization with collaboration with Orange and other EIF partners. We are going to talk about capacity building, we're going to talk about education and about, in particular, ICT education and digitalization in the partnership of EU-Africa. All of these against the background of the envisaged reinforcement of the EU-Africa partnership, where education is a priority, is an act to empower citizens and in particular young individuals. Our speakers will present different experience, different European projects that have been implemented or are being implemented in sub-Saharan Africa, all aiming at improving the educational conditions in African society and to deliver access to education opportunities, in particular on the digital ones in terms of services and contents. Also, we are very pleased to have the European Commission representative with us that will for sure will talk to us about the state of play of the partnership between the EU and Africa and tell us about the initiatives on the digital area that are so important for this continent. I'm sure we are going to learn a lot, and it's going to be a very interesting debate. My message will be short, as I'm eager to listen to our specialists and also to the debate. But I want to stress, from my professional and political career, for my experience, three topics that I consider crucial. The first one is the importance of capacity building. The second is the need to improve the skills, mainly the ICT skills, and the role of women. In the first aspect of capacity building, as I told you, I have some professional experience on cooperation with African countries, mainly on the education, and more recently on setting up public-private partnerships and public-to-public partnerships on the health area, on the area of AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis. But in my role of, I was twice minister in Portugal. I had the privilege to cooperate with the many European, African countries, mainly the Portuguese-speaking countries, on the setup of a new university, like the case of Cabo Verde, where we were also very important. Portugal was a partner in the setting up of the university, the Cabo Verde University, and also many cooperations with Angola, Mozambique, São Tomé, and beyond the Portuguese-speaking countries. So I know the importance of the capacity building and the importance of education. For me, there is no technology transfer without capacity building. Capacity building comes first. There is no point to transfer technology if there is not the absorption capacity for this technology transfer. And in capacity building, you have the institutional capacity building that is so important, to have the institutions, the public institutions, with the capacity to in general, but for all these new and emerging technologies that are so important. And you have the societal capacity building that's also very, very important. And there you have many sub areas, but skills and infrastructures are probably the two of most important. But in Africa, you have also, in special linked with ICT, but also linked with health, the importance of energy. The access to energy is something that it is of utmost importance to enabling the other capacity building in terms of education, in terms of ICT, in terms of health, in terms of food, because without electricity it's very difficult to do the other ones. I've seen many children getting around a lamp, a public lamp, to read books in African countries. That is something, studying there, because they didn't have electricity in their village, so they walk long kilometers to go to a public lamp to study. It's very emotional to see that, how they like to read and study, and the conditions are simply not there. And many times they have access to other things, but because of the also the cooperation with other countries, but the energy is missing. So it's a component that we can never forget, especially in the rural areas and the countries that are very dispersed. For example, like Mozambique, that is one of the problems is in the rural areas to have access to electricity. So infrastructure, very important in the case of ICT, access to information, access to internet, and that is tremendous important. But the skills, and this is my second point, and the education, but long life learning is the basis of the capacity building. And here I would divide in two parts. One is the education system, and to give the capacity to young people to also to make sure that we have enough specialists in these new areas like ICTs is very important for the development of any society. We are lacking them in Europe and even more in Africa. So there has been we have to make an effort to have enough specialists on ICT also in Africa. But there is another point that I want to stress, that is the education or long life learning of the general population, to give the basic skills on digital to the general population. It's very important for their life, for access to digital services, to understand the world, to get the information. It's very important. It's important related to their well-being, to their economic development, and also to democracy. To have access to e-health, for example, is very important, that they have the basic needs, the basic skills on digital. And my last point is the empower of women. Empower of women is important everywhere. I'm a big defender of the empower of women here in Europe, and in Africa is also crucial. To have the women with the special attention to the young girls, special attention to the women, to give them, not to let them be left behind on these digital skills. It will be very important. They have gained a very important role in the African society, and they cannot miss that role that they have now, the women in African society, because they lack ICT capacity. So with a special attention to the role of women as entrepreneurs, as educators, as a main stability in the family and in the society. So the role of women is it's very important in the African society, and like this, we should pay in our projects a lot of education, a lot of attention to the education and the empowering and the giving capacity to African women. There is a proverb in Africa that if you educate a man, you educate a person, an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a whole nation. And this is very completely true here in Europe, but also in Africa. So that is my main message, that I want to leave you, and I look forward to hear from your concrete examples and your experience. I leave back the floor to Maria Rosa, that I thank you very much for all the organization, showing that the role of women also here in Europe is a very important one. And she will moderate the debate with our experts. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Maria, for sharing your experience as well as an MEP, as a former minister, and for touching upon some of the crucial aspects of the collaboration. You have mentioned capacity building and tech transfer in this order, but also skills and women empowerment. Let's not forget that this very discussion we're having today with experts is only anticipating the EU-Africa summit that will take place on the 15th of February, so in a few days. I will now give the floor to Asma Ennaifer with Orange, who will tell us more about some initiatives on the ground.
Thank you, Maria. Dear Ms. Carvalho, member of the European Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, dear all, I'm Asma Ennaifer, the Director of CSR, Communication and Orange Digital Center at the Orange Middle East and Africa. On behalf of Orange Middle East and Africa, I would like to thank the European Internet Forum for organizing this event and giving us the opportunity to discuss the very important topic of digital education at a particular timely moment ahead of the Africa-Europe Summit. As you know, digital inclusion is one of our world's biggest challenges. Today, I'm here to share Orange commitments on the issue on how public-private partnerships can be very efficient tools to the digitalization of our economy and society. Orange is a private operator with a powerful raison d'être. That is, as a trusted partner, Orange gives everyone the keys to a responsible digital world. We have a comprehensive CSR strategy to strengthen the digital skills through the empowerment of youth, women and children in rural and urban areas, and to democratize to access to the internet through inclusive offers and smartphones. For instance, in Africa, we have developed Senza, the cheapest smartphone on the market, launched in 2019. At Orange, we follow and work to develop emerging and disruptive technology such as artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, blockchain, etc., through the 100 Orange R&D laboratories. We draw on the expertise of these labs to offer the latest in this technology to the beneficiaries of Orange Digital Center, of one of our biggest achievements in the digital inclusion field. Orange Digital Center is one of the main pillars of digital inclusion in the Orange Group's Engage 2025 strategy. All Orange's affiliates will be deploying an Odyssey by the horizon of 2025, forming a network of 32 Odysseys. Interestingly, Orange Digital Center are first and foremost an African project, as it originated in Tunisia. It is currently being exported from the African to the European continent due to its success. Odysseys are networked and will foster large-scale exchanges of experience and expertise, creating business for startups and opportunities for young people across Europe and Africa. So far, we have already opened 11 Odysseys, mainly in African countries. Orange Digital Center is an innovative ecosystem that goes from training and coaching on soft and hard skills to startup support, acceleration, and investment. It is based on 4 main programs grouped in one single place, where people with different levels of education competencies can develop their digital skills working on real projects with social impact. We have the coding school for the software part, the Fab Lab Solidaire for the hardware part, a startup accelerator, Orange Fab, and the investment fund of Orange Group, Orange Venture, which finances the most innovative startups. People will be provided with free digital training at different levels, basic, intermediate, and advanced, and with support to find a job and or to create a startup. These trainings are conducted mainly by Odyssey experts and volunteers in the Odyssey and all over the country. For example, for the digital education of children inside elementary schools, for women inside dedicated digital centers, and for youth inside universities and Odyssey clubs in regions. Tunisia's example, as shown on the slide, illustrates our various digital inclusion initiatives covering our different targets and spread all over the country. It is in this framework that Odyssey Tunisia has signed a partnership with UNTPA. This is also the case for Jordan, which signed a partnership with the EU under the call for projects Open Innovation Hub to expand the Odyssey concept to different regions across the country and introduce more women and youth to digital culture and engage them in certified learning activities. During the COVID-19 crisis, our Odysseys adapted quickly to the situation and continued to provide the training courses by switching to an online platform while keeping the training interactive with an Odyssey expert teaching and exchanging with the learners online. To give everyone a chance to access digital learning. This led us to increase the number of online courses to address the greatest number. For instance, an MOU is under process with the African Union to provide access to their online platform, AU Learn platform, in free access to all Orange Digital Centers learners. To contribute to the common goal, to reduce unemployment and digital divide, especially in African countries. I want to insist again on the importance of having private-public partnership with governments, universities, NGOs, technology partners as well. Only together we will be able to meet the tremendous challenge of digital transition. This is why we welcome EU initiatives that aims at strengthening relationships with African countries. The latest Digital Gateway strategy rightly contributes to that effort. The success of this strategy will depend on a variety of factors, and an important one will be the continued involvement and consultation of the private sector, in particular local private actors who have an intimate and operational knowledge of the local environments, conditions, challenges, and needs. We welcome consultation with the EU through platforms such as the D4D Hub, but a broader implication of private actors at the local level will lead to more efficient and permanent development projects and a more successful European development policy. Finally, when considering the EU-AU summit, which will take place next week, we strongly hope that the new EU partnership will entail concrete actions regarding support to private investment in network as key driver for digitalization, as well as commitment in terms of education and digital training, enhancing skill development, including supporting impactful private sector initiatives. In that sense, it's also essential that any new initiative does not only address African capitals and larger cities, but also disadvantaged areas such as enclave territories and rural regions. My dream is to give equal chances to youth in both continents. I will not go into further details at this stage, but I'm happy to go over any point during the Q&A session. I will now kindly hand it over to you, Toni, for some more details, inputs on the Odyssey project and the added value of the GIZ Orange partnership. In fact, for 14 of the 18 Odyssey countries in the Africa and Middle East region, we are working together with GIZ to deploy them together with a joint financial contribution of more than 30 million euros. I would like to renew my thanks to GIZ for their commitment to the Odysseys and their support in carrying out of our project. We hope to successfully keep fulfilling our shared vision of broader digital inclusion, reduction of unemployment, and to support youth, innovation, and boost entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Asma, and over to Toni.
Just give me a moment. No. Thank you so much. Thank you, Asma, for the introduction. On behalf of GIZ, I would like also to thank Madam Member of the European Parliament and, of course, the organizers of the European Internet Forum for providing the platform for this debate and the opportunity to highlight some examples on how we are contributing to closing the digital divide through digital education and e-learning initiatives in Africa. We, that is GIZ, the Deutsche Gesellschaft für Internationale Zusammenarbeit, we are a federal enterprise operating worldwide in about 100 countries, and we support the German government in the fields of international cooperation for sustainable development and international education. Me, that is Toni Kaatz-Dubberke, I'm coordinating the German contribution to the development partnership with Orange in this Orange Digital Center project. At the same time, I work with our colleagues at the global project Digital Transformation on a wide range of topics around digital transformation in our partner countries in Africa and beyond. We believe that overcoming the digital divide cannot be shouldered by national governments and taxpayers alone. Investments in digital skills need a strong involvement of the private sector as well. By cooperating with European and African tech companies in concrete projects, the aspiration of making sense of a third way between the Chinese and US models for digital transformation that is human-centered and inclusive can be projected into the growth regions of tomorrow. One very effective instrument for such cooperations with the private sector is our Develop PPP program, which the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, that is the BMZ, has set up to foster private sector participation to the point where business opportunities and development policy initiatives overlap. To this end, BMZ offers financial and technical support to companies that do business in developing and in emerging countries. It is in this framework that we have joined forces with our partners at Orange Middle East and Africa in 2020 to boost the ODC project to enhance digital skills of young people and support them to find digital jobs in 14 countries. You can see them here on the map. The deployment of Orange Digital Centers does not only contribute, though, to reducing youth unemployment, but also to foster local digital innovation and will hence have a positive impact on the digital ecosystems of these countries at large. What we really much like about the project and the partnership is that the concept has been developed in Africa actually. So as Asma said, it is an idea from Tunisia. We further like the scaling approach also of this proven and convincing holistic concept to promote digital skills for employment. We like, of course, the fact that the offers are free of charge and have a special focus on the inclusion of women, but also that Orange invests in least developed countries that are too often not on the map when we talk about digital development in Africa. Finally, the project is very well aligned with local, but also with AU and EU strategies for digital development in Africa. We are very delighted to work with such a performing partner such as Orange and recognize the achievement of a lot of results, despite all the challenges that we are facing, of course, due to COVID-19, but also due to political issues in some of the implementation countries. As such, since the beginning of the project in 2010 already, more than 100,000 young people have been trained in Orange Digital Centers and their partner universities, and more than 8,000 trainees were supported to find a job in a local company after their training. Further, around 270 startups have been supported or accelerated. Especially women are privileged in the Orange Digital Center, a fact we also like a lot. Among the beneficiaries, 30 to 60% are women, depending on the country. And we aim to empower them and to reduce unemployment by providing them IT training, but also train them on basic digital skills, for example, on how to boost their businesses online. With the project evolving, more and more offers are tailored to women, for example, through dedicated trainings and events. The message should be clear: computers are not just for boys. Speaking of involving, the project is of course open to new partners from both the public and private sector to reach even more young people, especially in rural areas outside the big cities. These future new partnerships will be instrumental to the sustainability of the project. Now, from the perspective of GIZ, we see the ODCs, the Orange Digital Centers, as a very interesting physical infrastructure that already complements many of our other initiatives on digital learning in Africa, such as our online learning platform, Atingi. You know, with continuously improving connectivity that we see all over Africa, also, of course, thanks to telecommunication providers, network providers such as Orange and others, more and more people in Africa can now tap into online learning resources. At the same time, COVID-19 has given quite a push for digitization, of course, in all countries, but in Africa in particular, and has created an increased need for distance learning. Unfortunately, though, a lot of online learning content remains behind paywalls and public offers are often not available. So that is why we have set up the atingi.org platform that I invite you to consult, perhaps afterwards, to provide learning opportunities for all, which is open source and free of charge. The content is developed for and with a wide range of target groups, spanning from skills for the tourism industry to entrepreneurship and artificial intelligence, and of course, many more topics. Plus, we provide a state-of-the-art learning management system and expert advice for content partners. For example, we work with Smart Africa, providing the base for their digital academy, the SADA. But we will also work with NGOs, universities, and other international development partners. Currently, there are more than 200 publicly available courses online in both English, French, and Arabic, and increasingly also in local languages such as Kinyarwanda, Swahili. And they are not just courses, there are also games, for example, the Mama Atingi smartphone app, through which young people can acquire entrepreneurial skills. I'll be happy to share the link. As such, in only 2 years, we could attract about 450,000 users who completed more than 200,000 learning modules. And we want to go on. By 2025, we would like to see 1.3 million users having completed 2.3 million learning modules. In fact, Atingi will become the standard tool for digital learning in German development cooperation projects. Now, bringing this together, and I think this is interesting, we learned during the last 2-3 years, is the combination of Atingi and the Orange Digital Centers, which proved just to be the right approach for our challenging times. As more and more trainings had to shift to online, we use Atingi also for delivering ODC trainings. To sum up and look forward, both concepts, the physical ODCs and the virtual Atingi platform, are highly scalable and open to development partners from Africa and Europe. Hence, we are inviting you to join us to make digital education a chance for everyone. I thank you very much for your attention and now look forward to the inputs of the other speakers and of course the discussion afterwards. Thank you so much.
Many thanks indeed to both Asma and to you, Toni, for sharing so many concrete initiatives on the ground powered by the Orange Digital Center and partners, just like GIZ. Now, the floor goes to Siobhan at iMlango.
Thanks very much, Maria Rosa. And I do want to say how incredibly privileged I feel being able to speak at such an event, because being South African, it is so important for European Parliament, for the EIF, to foster such debates, particularly how significant the EU is as a donor in Africa, and against the backdrop of the EU-Africa partnership, and particularly in light of next week's discussions. In March 2020, Commission President Ursula von der Leyen noted that together we can build a more prosperous, more peaceful, and more sustainable future for all. And it is in the background of that I am here to talk about our iMlango project. And it is, I feel, a great example of how the EU is able to build that sustainable future for all and build into the digital learning for all. So iMlango, before I get started on anything, is our flagship e-learning project that we at Avanti Communications are very, very proud of. But before I get started on going into the detail around iMlango, I just want to start with speaking around the large level of education inequalities that still exist between different countries and particularly between groups within countries. So these are two UNESCO stats that I've just pulled up from their World Database on Education and Equality. The first one talks around 80% of children that live in rural areas in low-income countries do transition into secondary education. However, when you compare that to their urban areas, around 91% of children transition into lower secondary education, which seems like a reasonable stat. But then you go on to look at 13% of the poorest of those children in sub-Saharan Africa actually then go on to complete lower secondary school, compared with their 70% of the richest children. So there you can see just from those two stats, the stark inequalities that exist within some countries. I'm going specifically into Kenya now because our iMlango project was in Kenya. And at the start of the project, we did a baseline study in our schools. And that baseline study, we found that those Kenyan children in the schools experience an annual learning deficit of 42% compared to their international peers. This was done by looking at a global standard baseline study that was conducted internationally as well as within Kenya. And you can see from the bars there that for every 1 year that an international student goes through school, they're learning the full year, whereas the Kenyan child is actually only learning some of that year, which results in that total learning deficit. So if you take the 8 years of primary education in Kenya, over those 8 years, an international child learns 8 years, whereas a Kenyan child actually only learns 4.6 years, leaving a deficit of 3.4 years behind. And that's something that's quite profound. And I think the question then becomes, well, that's great, Siobhan, thanks for telling us that, but how do we go about fixing that? What can we do? And we have found that with iMlango, we have proven that we can double numeracy learning rates and almost triple numeracy learning rates and overcome some of those learning deficits that are so stark, it's unbelievable sometimes when you think of them. And just to now go into a bit of iMlango. So iMlango was implemented in Kenya in 4 of the most marginalized areas. We did it in 245 primary and secondary schools in those key regions. We reached around 180,000 school children that we were able to show learning outcomes. Around half of those were girls. So we improved around 90,000 girls' learning outcomes. We also were able to build up the skills of around 5,200 teachers. I'll go into a bit more detail on what iMlango exactly is. But when you think of some of the problems around why there are such stark inequalities, a lot of it goes towards quality of education and quality of teaching, and whether you even have a qualified teacher standing in front of a class. So by being able to build up the capacity of those teachers as well as their confidence, you're starting to improve the quality of education and reducing the deficit in learning outcomes. We were also then able to, on average, improve learning outcomes in those 245 schools by around 18 months. If we go back to that original statement I made around the learning deficit, each child was learning only around 6 months in a total year, to over the 7 years of iMlango have improved that to an 18-month improvement on maths age. We've taken it from 6 to 18 months. I think that's quite profound. So how did we do that? What is iMlango? iMlango involves 3 key interventions in each of the schools. And we do that firstly by setting up a fully equipped ICT lab in each of the schools. That includes hardware, the software, which is the platform that I'll come on to, as well as each of the schools being connected to satellite bandwidth capacity. And this is particularly important when we think of the context of where those learning deficits happen. If we talk to the 13% of those poorest, they're in very, very rural areas, harsh terrain, often not reached by your standard methods of communication. So you need to find a way to, in the most cost-effective manner, give bandwidth connectivity, and satellite offers you the route to do that. So each of those are connected with satellite bandwidth capacity. The second intervention is then a personalized adaptive platform. And this is where we feel that you get most of the gains from the learning outcomes. What does a personalized adaptive platform mean? It means that each child can learn at their own pace, at their own speed, and they learn at what they're good at, what they're not so good at. They're able to then tailor, or the platform does it for them. The platform tailors each lesson. It's around 90% as effective as a one-on-one tutor. So for children in rural Kenya, where quality of education might not be as good as it is for someone who's sitting in luxury in England, each child has their own one-on-one personal tutor. And that is what has been able to improve those learning outcomes by such a significant portion. And then the third key intervention was the teacher capacity building. So we spent a lot of time, our field staff on the ground in Kenya would go teach the teachers ICT skills. It improves their confidence, one, on using computers, because often this is something that is new to them. So it improves their ICT skills. It also improves their content. So we spend a lot of time engaging on mathematics and how to teach mathematics and what do certain things mean. Once a teacher is confident about the subject matter that they're teaching, they then become more confident to teach that subject matter instead of ignoring it. And then the third thing that we do is we help those teachers with scheduling. It's really, really important that each child gets access to the computer to be able to spend time on the computer. And it's often quite difficult around how do you go about doing that. So we've spent a lot of time working with the teachers to schedule the access for each of the children. And while those might be the three main key interventions, what we have learned along the way is that you can't do this in isolation. So each one of these things cannot be done without looking at how do we safeguard children? How do we think about the role gender plays with each of the children? And it's come up quite a few times. And iMlango was part of a girls' education challenge. So the focus was very much on women, on girl children, and looking at just marginalizing behaviors within a community, marginalizing behaviors within a school, and putting in simple behaviors that could change that. Something as simple as creating two lines, one line of boys, one line of girls, and letting a boy go to the classroom and then a girl go into the classroom so that they each get equal opportunity to use the platform, to use the computers, is profound and has resulted in some of the outcomes that we've seen. So that's really a lot of that, a lot of what we've done, and is not limited to just that. But what we have learned is that achieving learning outcomes at significant scale requires overcoming certain barriers. Our mission at Avanti is to enable people, countries, continents to be more. And we do truly believe that education is one element in the journey to success. And we have ambitions to scale what we've achieved in iMlango across sub-Saharan Africa. We don't want to keep it in just 245 schools in Kenya. We want to go much bigger. We want to reach, to start, 2 to 3 million children across various different countries in Africa. But what we've realized to do that, any intervention in education at a worthwhile scale, there are 3 key challenges that we need to overcome as a business, as a community, as a partnership. We need to look at sustainability, we need to look at scalability, and we need to look at value for money. And all 3 of those are inextricably linked. It's not going to be sustainable if there's no value for money, and it's not going to be scalable if it's not sustainable. But in order to achieve all those things on the right-hand side, so those learning outcomes, the teacher capacity, the ICT skills, the engagement at schools, the community engagement, we really do need to focus on those 3 things. And if we think about iMlango, which was a FCDO funded project, the funding ended after 7 years, and then the question becomes, well, what do we do now? how do we continue this project that has seen such profound changes for these children's lives? I mean, we had some of the children changing schools because their parents were so interested in what was happening at a different school. The communities got really, really involved. And once that starts to happen, you recognize the potential of the product that you have to take forward. And I think that's really, really important. And so what I would like to say really to everyone here is that sustainability is at the heart of every EdTech project that is going on. And that's certainly something that as an EU-Africa dialogue and debate that is happening, we really need to look at that, because education is at the heart of improving the lives of everyone and increasing digital learning for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Siobhan, for presenting iMlango to us and all its achievements. A very interesting project indeed. Now, I'll give the floor to Kiarie Kamau with the East African Educational Publishers.
Thank you very much. And let me start by saying that this is quite an exciting moment to be sharing our experiences in Kenya and Africa, for that matter, at this very important forum. And I believe that upon sharing our experiences and listening to my co-speakers, as well as the questions that will be asked, we shall be able to move another step ahead of what we have been doing. I have listened to the other speakers, and I think my presentation will be slightly different because we are basically, as book publishers, we are content developers. We have been in content development for many years and presenting this content in printed format. And now, the last 5 years, we've been transitioning from purely the printed format to also digital format, so that we can provide all the solutions hand in hand. I will share my presentation, and I'll be explaining quite a bit of each slide as I present it. I have decided to mention some historical background of the company so that all of us can see where I am coming from. So just a moment. Well, we have quite a variety of products that we offer at East African Educational Publishers. We say that we do publish across the board. And I will be talking about the various product segments that we have, right from the early childhood development products through to tertiary level products that target universities, colleges, and the general reader. I mentioned that I would be keen to give just some historical background of East African Education Publishers, which started way back in 1965 as a British-owned company called Heinemann, and which was mainly known for publishing of perhaps the finest creative works, cutting across Africa from Kenya through Nigeria to South Africa, associated with the African Writers series, which we have since rebranded to African Classics series. Iconic names like Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Chinua Achebe, among others. But Heinemann was, in 1992, acquired by local entrepreneurs, and therefore it rebranded into East African Educational Publishers. This rebranding also saw the expansion in terms of product offering, which I'll be explaining much more, and also expansion in terms of regional reach. That today we do have our headquarters here in Nairobi, Kenya, but also presence with subsidiaries in Tanzania, Rwanda, Zambia, and also agency representation in a number of African countries, including Uganda, Malawi, South Sudan, and Botswana. As I mentioned in the beginning, the product range is quite wide. The early childhood and development titles that target children of between the ages of 2 years and 5 years. Primary school textbooks that are done following the specific country's curriculum. And we have for Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Zambia, and Uganda, where we work with the local curriculum experts to tailor the books as per the curriculum of that country. The same applies to the secondary school textbooks for the same countries. But perhaps the area that we are best known for is in the area of creative works that target children, storybooks, which we offer in English as well as in Kiswahili and other African languages. I have talked about the African Writers series. It is under creative works that we publish books that are aligned to the African Writers series, and which I said we rebranded to African Classics series. We do have revision books targeting primary and secondary school users for Kenyan schools as well as for the region. Reference books, atlases, dictionaries in English as well as dictionaries in Kiswahili, which we call kamusi. Books targeting the tertiary institutions, colleges, universities. General readership books like biographies and autobiographies. And much more important, digital products. Now, my presentation will mainly focus on these last segment, digital products, because it cuts across. We've done some digital products that target ECDE learners, that target primary school children, and also that target the general reader. And just a few images of the African Classics series. As you can see, some of the leading authors in Africa and many more. And just maybe I'll come back to this particular slide when I'll be talking about the area of collaborations and partnerships. EAP's digital content. I mentioned that for many years, we have been in development of digital content and presenting it in printed format. And we've been transitioning into also offering it in digital format. The easiest and most immediate, of course, is the ebooks, where books are presented as EPUBs and PDF versions. Then we have the interactive revision books, especially targeting the multiple choice questions for primary school children, and the interactive digital content. Later in my presentation, I will elaborate much more on the interactive digital content, because that is what the Ministry of Education in Kenya is much more geared towards ensuring we do develop. As I have mentioned, we internally do the ebooks. We have a design and production studio. So our designers and the ICT experts do develop the ebooks. They are also rather easy to market and sell. We make them available on CDs, flash disks, as well as other external hard drives. But we also make them available online, and locally we have platforms or applications, if you like, such as eKitabu, Kitabu, among others. There are so many startups in this area that are coming up, and we are keen to explore all the available possibilities, as long as the agreements that we sign with them are non-exclusive. Then internationally, we do have our books on platforms such as World Reader, the African Books Collective, as well as Amazon. Interactive revision books. Examinations are key in Kenya in order to transition from one level to the next. And in primary schools, examinations are offered in multiple choice format. That is choosing A, B, C, or D. So we have partnered with a company called VisionWise to target examination candidates, where we have done books that have got sample examination questions done in digital format, and the learner using a computer or a tablet or even a smartphone can on their own do the examination, complete that sample exam, and the results are generated automatically. We've also moved a step further, where after the results are generated automatically, the learner is able to see why they did not get right in certain questions. Then there is interactive digital content, and this is the area in which really we have seen the value of the public-private partnerships. The Ministry of Education, working with the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, KICD, started way back in 2015 by offering specialized training to publishers and other content developers. It developed standards for online curriculum support materials, which serve as guidelines to publishers and basically content developers on what should go into the IDC. The KICD further calls for submissions of such IDC. You know, when publishers and content developers do develop this IDC, they are obliged to submit to the KICD if they want that content to be used in Kenyan public schools. And once the evaluation has been done and it meets the expectations of the KICD, then it is approved and entered into a government catalog, so that one, the government itself can purchase, and two, parents and teachers can also purchase directly. KICD is very firm on how these IDC should be developed. And one of the things that it has insisted is that the interactive digital content should engage the learner while offering meaningful learning experiences. It should capture the learner's attention by being engaging and by use of animations, videos, among other facilities to capture the learner's attention, enhance interactivity. And in terms of distribution, again, the public-private partnerships come into play. The government developed what is called the Kenya Education Cloud. And it is onto this cloud that the IDC is uploaded upon approval. But again, upon contractual agreement between the content developer, or the publisher for that matter, and the government agency, KICD. I want to say that in my company, EAP, IDC is a work in progress. We have signed collaboration agreements with 3 different companies that have got expertise in the development of IDC to come up with content that will meet the KICD evaluation criteria. Much more important is that we have also tapped into the expertise of young men and women, especially those who are taking courses that are related to ICT, to participate in the development of IDC, especially with regard to animations and development of appropriate videos for the learner. What are the gains so far? I want to say that from a commercial perspective, there's agreements that we have signed with various companies are already earning us revenues. And these revenues are split between the publisher and the authors or the content developers. We are also able, in terms of publicity, promotions, and visibility, to showcase our products beyond borders very swiftly and at a minimal cost. And I want to say that in some areas, especially for works that target gender leadership, we have made it our policy that as soon as we release the printed format, simultaneously, we also release the digital format, uploaded and on sale via Amazon, so that we are able to reach those who are able to visit bookshops, physical bookshops, and those who are more aligned to the online sales and digital format of the books. Others are also getting exposed beyond borders, and we've been getting, requests for permissions to reproduce some of the works that we have done, hence resulting into more revenues both to the publisher and to the author. Prospects for more collaborations and partnerships keep growing. In the, locally, there are so many startups I mentioned in Kenya, geared towards development of, digital content, as well as internationally. And there are also many possibilities that abound, including the possibility of collaboration with Netflix, especially targeting our drama books. The areas that need improvement, and for that matter, more partnerships and collaborations, especially internationally. Our experience is that development of IDC is a rather expensive affair, and especially generation of animations. Internet penetration. I was very keen when the players in the orange were presenting, because this is a major impediment in the area of digital access to digital content. So internet penetration can be improved to help in access of digital content. And with that, again, the issue of energy. Internet connectivity and use is still out of reach of the majority of Kenyans. And again, especially in 2020, when there was a lockdown, we experienced the real dangers of copyright infringement targeting digital content. There are so many techno-savvy, pirates hacking into even the best secured content and offering it at throwaway prices via social media outlets such as Facebook and so on. Then there is exploitation of by some well-developed owners of digital platforms through payment of a pittance to have high-value content uploaded onto their sites. The issue of ignorance and apathy by target audiences. It is very surprising that there are some who, even with access to internet and digital devices like smartphones, they are still not very keen on digital content, which is actually very easily accessible. Education, sensitization of all stakeholders in the education sector on the importance of embracing interactive digital content, or, if I may, the whole arena of digital content is also key. But it needs to be enhanced through more partnerships and collaborations. And that enhancement can even be better through more training of the publishers, the design teams, those who are engaged in the selling of the content through the internet, so that we can reach far and wide. And I conclude by saying that, well, we look forward to working with you to make our digital content available far and wide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kiarie, for sharing your publishing work with us, and with special focus on the digital products. Now we will close the round of presentations with Kirsten van Kamp with the European Commission.
Thank you. Yes, so I will speak today also about digital learning, because digitalization and educational skills are two important priorities for DG INTPA, as you all know. And I've learned a lot already from the different presentations we had, and I will echo some of these points. So I will share a bit of our ongoing reflections on digital education, which of course has been shaped also by the ongoing COVID-19 crisis, which has not only accelerated digital education and learning, but also intensified it. So for us, digital education has two separate but interrelated dimensions, namely digital has not only impacted how we teach, but also what we teach. So I will start with the first one, how we teach. So digital technologies have transformed the way we teach and learn, especially during lockdowns. This has had an important impact. We all know that the open and free internet has revolutionized access to information. I think many of us reach for their phones when we have a question or we are in a discussion. The role of the internet in the information revolution has further been strengthened in this through global movements, such as, for example, open educational resources or MOOCs, etc. So it is important that we recognize that educational technologies, not only the ones I mentioned, but also learning management platforms, virtual reality, etc., have the potential to significantly increase access to trainers with limited additional costs for each learner, and allowing more self-paced and personalized learning trajectories, as I think was mentioned before as well. Nevertheless, we also need to recognize a few of the challenges, which have also become more apparent during the COVID-19 crisis, and specifically important digital divides that limit equal access to educational technologies and hence quality education. So some estimations indicate that whereas in high-income countries, 86% of school-aged children have internet access at home, in low-income and lower middle-income countries, this is respectively only 6% and 14% of the school-aged children. So there's a huge gap, I would say. Furthermore, there is a significant rural-urban divide as well. So in West and Central Africa, only 2% of children living in rural areas have internet access at home, whereas it is 11% in urban areas. This is still very low, but it's 5 times the rate in rural areas. In Latin America, there is not a bad access, I would say. 62% of school-aged children have access in urban areas, but in rural areas, this is only 27%. So again, a huge gap. And of course, there is also the issue of the gender-digital divide, which is further compounded by intersectionalities. So in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, there are still staggering gender gaps of over 35% in internet usage and uptake, whether this is mobile or other means. And of course, this gender gap is further compounded by online gender-based violence, which seems to be further aggravated by the COVID-19 crisis. So, and I think it's important also to highlight these digital divides are just as much about access to connectivity as about having the skills and the right literacy to use these resources effectively. So not only in terms of being able to use educational technology, but also in order to be able to navigate the vast and continuous stream of information we have online, which is not filtered by editors or parents, but which requires sufficient media and information literacy to navigate it adequately for education and learning. So these opportunities and challenges in leveraging digital for teaching and learning, I think, is the first area where we see these digital and education converging. Then secondly, I want to highlight the impact digital has had on what we teach and what we need to learn. So since digital technologies have become part and parcel of our everyday life, whether these are our professional or personal lives, we need to have the right skills and literacy to be able to use digital. So as such, all citizens need to have some level of digital literacy today to live, work, and learn and thrive in a world increasingly mediated by digital technologies. This also implies that in preparing the workforce of tomorrow, digital literacy and basic digital skills need to be integrated. The EU has been a front runner in this area, I'm proud to say, in identifying essential digital competences through the DIGCOM 2.1 framework, which is now being updated to a 2.2 version, which aims to include also new emerging topics and themes in digital competence, such as green ICT skills and data literacy. I think it's important to keep in mind that this is always a work in progress because, of course, digital is changing all the time. Furthermore, the digital economy, of course, has also given emergence to new industries and services that demand digitally highly skilled digital professionals, such as for occupations like data science, computer programming, robotics, or designing digital courses. So it is important to note that the virtual character of these jobs also, in combination with a high overall demand for digital skills in the global economy, there's a shortage globally, I would say, allows for high worker mobility and even provides opportunities for employment through online freelancing platforms, which is a very interesting evolution. Therefore, however, we also need to ask ourselves, what are the right regulatory frameworks and social protection forms that can accompany this revolution to ensure also decent work for self-account work and micro work? And finally, if we want to reach the full potential of the digital economy, it is key that we recognize the gender disparities. We see today that very few girls are participating in advanced digital skills education, and there is a gap also between those who graduate in digital studies, but still don't pursue a career in this field. So I think we are not achieving the full potential of the digital economy if we ignore these disparities. Then within the EU, we have some very important initiatives that try to tackle these interrelated aspects of digital education. In the Social Rights Action Plan, there is a target of ensuring that at least 80% of those aged 16 to 74 have basic digital skills. We have the Digital Compass, which states the ambition to have at least 20 million employed ICT specialists in the EU by 2030, with conversions between women and men, tackling the disparities, the gender disparities. And then we have the Digital Education Action Plan, which outlines 12 key actions to achieve these ambitions, and also foster the development of a high-performing digital education ecosystem, including e-learning. And then with regards to the external dimension of digital education, the Global Gateway already highlights the importance of investing in quality education, including digital education, with particular attention to the inclusion of girls and women and other vulnerable groups. Now, finally, I will conclude by highlighting the importance of multi-stakeholder engagement to achieve these objectives. I think that in order to close the digital divide and tackle the challenges mentioned, ensuring that the right skills are taught to support the twin transition and leverage the full potential of digital for education, we need the involvement and commitment of governments and administrations, of civil society, private sector, and academia, because each of these have a role to play in ensuring that digital education is equally accessible and contributes to sustainable development. So thank you very much.